Elen Lumen Nomentielvo. A star shines on the hour of our meeting. Hello, friends. I'm Narelon. Runs the stream. Narelon, I've done my old thing, not my current thing ever. I'm supposed to say I'm Narelon Starfire. Pronouns he, him. Welcome to the stream. But I did my old one, so I ran into automatic there as I do. Sometimes. There we go. We got there in the end. How are we all doing? It's Sunday into which is painting day. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be painting. It's very warm in the UK at the moment. It's it's not as warm as yesterday, but still warm. It rained earlier here, like very heavily, so now it's just like super humid, and I feel like I might die. Even though I don't normally moan about warm weather, do I? So I should do it no more. But it's just very humid and very warm. Hi Loomis, it's too warm. I was promised there would be rain. Yeah, we had some earlier. I guess you didn't get it. But we got some here very heavily, like that way you can like hear the drops hitting, like really hit the individual drops hitting the bricks and stuff. So it's just made it really humid. Please try to stay in character. I'm sorry, Loomis. See, I don't normally mind warm weather. It's just very humid, and I'm annoyed. But otherwise, it's not too bad, is it really? It's only 25 degrees. It's nothing really. There you go. Is that better? It's warmer in here than it is out there. From in my living room, it's not so bad. We got a little drizzle, but nothing to write home about. I think they had storms somewhere else, but we've not had any of them yet. I did get like hold on, let me put my phone on the thing again, so it don't beep. Let me do that. Oh, they've updated it now. Nothing's where it were before. There we go. There's been an Android update, and like everything's different now, and I don't like it. Done. But yeah, I'd had like one of those warnings on your phone. Say it was going to be a storm. We've not had a storm yet. Well, there we are. Anyway. What are we doing today? We're painting out. We're carrying on with the Baal Predator. That's what we're doing. I can't remember what we got up to last week. Is that a bit better? Aye, I've got to paint like around the edges of the sponsor, and I don't want to because it's awkward. Leave the bit in the middle black. You want to do the edges red though, which is going to be slightly awkward to paint. Like, it's not terrible, but it's going to be slightly awkward. So of course I always put these things off. Just need to do under the end of the track guards at the back. Just neaten up around the underside, which we've done a little bit of, but needs a little bit more. General neatening up before we go on to the next stage. That's what we'll be doing. I still haven't decided exactly what I'm doing with this turret, but that's okay. So what are we all doing today, apart from being too warm? What was I saying? I was telling somebody earlier, I saw, there's always that annual British people moan about weather. So you get some Americans telling them to just buy aircon, And I thought the best version of that, which was someone saying, what's the excuse for not having it? Because, it's only $300 to $500. Are you really saying you can't just afford to buy it? It made me laugh so much, because that's not nothing, is it? Like $300 to $500 is not nothing. The kind of exchange rates are a bit of a myth, right? Like the exchange rates don't indicate the real value of a currency, of course. So it's more like, 200 and something to about 300 and something quid. Which like people don't necessarily just have like lying around, do they? People aren't necessarily able to just be like, oh yeah, I'll just spend several £100 on something I'll use for a fortnight a year. What time's that? Like if I were buying a house or something, or like building one from scratch, I'd probably put it in. So I think it's going to be increasingly worth it, isn't it? But whether I'd be able to like retrofit it into my own house, As it is now, I don't know. It's an investment. Exactly, yeah. You're not just going to get used for one. That fortnight will get longer each year. I mean, that's true. You bought one. You bought one then, Lewis. Because to be honest, that's not wrong. And I've actually seen people point that out, that it's only going to get worse. So you might as well get it now. But at the same time, I guess the more people get them, the more economies of scale you'll get, right? So the cheaper it'll get over time. So maybe it's worth hanging on a little bit. Because it is only going to get worse. Then of course, then you got the electric bills, haven't you? No. Well, that's another issue then, isn't it? Like your electric bills. Probably pretty... exactly, Loomis. Yeah, that's great minds think alike once more. It's probably pretty expensive to run. Because like our energy bills are ridiculous, aren't they? And it's something I could talk about at great length because of how angry I get over it. About just how silly the energy bills are now. Well, that's a deliberate choice by the energy companies, isn't it? They're deliberately pouring them up. And the government's allowing them to because it's their mates, their funders, their donors. Really, last week we were talking about water companies, or that week before. Energy companies are in the firing line now. It's one of those things where it's so frustrating because you can see how it can be better, and like easily better for everyone. And like it's not a big deal, and it's not hard to do or anything like that. And you can pretty easily just make everything better for everyone. And we're not doing it because corruption and capitalism and all that. It makes me so mad. It's like we could just do it, right? And it'd just be better for everyone. There's so many ways we can really easily make everything better right now. That's why it's going to be up to us, isn't it? Because the government's not going to do it, so we're going to have to decide on making things better for everyone. Just drop that. Crap me saying up, sorry. So I'm holding it awkwardly to try and get her an awkward bit. Good thing it's plastic, eh? If this were resin, it'd have broke, it'd have shattered. If it were metal, everything would have bent. Probably put a hole in my desk and all if it were metal. I know this is like the underside of the tank that no one ever paints. But I must do it. I can't not. There we are. Anyway, easy enough to get riled up by that. About energy companies and all that stuff. Oops, that's way too much paint. Oh well. What I've got to do now is paint that awkward bit on the inside of the sponson. So that's what I shall do next. Hold on. I'll do that. While I've got this paint on my brush, I might as well quickly do this broad bit, and modern tanks don't even have undersides anymore. Well, exactly. Like, you don't need to worry about it. I know I've talked about it before, but that for Raw was so funny. Like the way people were pitching it as like a deliberate insult. That like GW were doing it like deliberately to like as an insult. That like, who are they insulting? Like the Brotherhood of Underside Tank Painters. Like what? Who's the target for the deliberate insult there? It was very funny. And it's not even the whole underside, it's just a strip down the middle. Right? Like it's a strip down the middle of the underside, and people were so mad about it. It was very funny. Why bother? They've never been able to come up with good rules for minefields. Yeah, absolutely. I wish they did. But of course nowadays in the more like simplified rules sets as well, you don't have armor facings, so you don't get the fun of saying, you know, oh well, it's hit the underside of the vehicle, therefore it counts as hitting the rear armor or whatever. So I don't know how I feel about that still, by the way. They're getting rid of armor facings. Because on the one hand, I completely understand why. But on the other hand, I always liked it. I liked having to like get hull down and like position your tank and stuff. I don't think there's rules for hull down anymore. I think it's just, you know, cover rules, which is fine, I get that. It's non-trivial to have something that only one player knows about yet is revealed fairly. Yeah, absolutely, Loomis. Yeah, it's not a nothing, is it? There's no facings anymore. That feels like a very important thing missing. They've got them in Horus Heresy, because that's basically just old 40k. But for several editions now, that tanks haven't had facings. Because they just have an armor save, like... well, vehicles just have like the same stats as everything else now. That's been years. Several editions. And it's just old men like me who moan about it all the while. I do think part of the reason they've done the Horus Heresy rules the way they have is to like appease people like me. But look, if you want your armor facings, here's a game just for you. But yeah, absolutely, it takes a big aspect of tank combat away. I completely agree with that. I prefer armor facings. I prefer that way of doing things. As I say, I understand why they simplified it in the way that they did. But I much preferred them. I liked having that. Like having like fast vehicles get around the back of a tank to attack its weak armor was really fun. I liked having that. And that's part of the problem, is that 40k is constantly trying to be, and in a way sort of needs to be, I guess, everything to everyone. And it can't be like, there's going to be people who are, and you always get it whenever there's a change, whenever there's something that's different about 40k, you get half of the people saying, oh, thank goodness, I'm glad they got rid of that. And then you get everybody else going, no, I loved that, why would they do that to us? And to be honest, when it comes to me, it depends what they've changed as to how I react. You know, it's the old joke, isn't it? When GW nerfs my faction, this is outrageous. Who, you know, they're just sabotaging it. They've got an agenda. When they nerf a different faction, well deserved. Really important to balance gameplay. That's me too. Not with the balance aspect, because I don't play enough to notice. But any of the changes. Wow, this is really fiddly. Once again, I'm lamenting that I assembled the sponsons before painting. I know for future. I know what I'm going to do differently now. I wonder how many other, because you think it'd be like a very normal thing, but I wonder how many of the other like popular tabletop games like that have the tank facing stuff or armor facings. Like, I don't know, bolt action or whatever. I wonder if they have it. Because you think on like the historical game it would be super important. But I honestly don't know because I barely know anything about bolt action. I'll be honest, the main thing I know about bolt action is that there are a lot of people who play it who play the Nazis, if you know what I mean. I don't think I could ever do that, you know. Yeah, it takes away some of the importance of mobility and maneuver, which should be an important aspect of the game. Yeah. I made a mistake with that. You know what, it's fine. Now you've got me thinking, by the way, Loomis, about how you could do fairly like rules for minefields. Would you both have to have them? How would that work? I think minefields and stuff, it's a narrative game thing, isn't it? Which is definitely a very undervalued, I think it's fair to say, underdeveloped part of the Warhammer 40,000 experience is the narrative play side, where you're not playing about points values. You're playing about, like, for a scenario or whatever. I mean, it can include points values, don't get me wrong, but like you're not just like matched play, you know. You're not kind of going like, right, we're going to have 2,000 points each and we're going to play things out like that for, you know, control of objectives and stuff like, you know, as you would in a typical game. But rather you've got like a special scenario with special rules, and perhaps even your victory conditions are different. I know I read an article recently from Jarvis Johnson, who's one of the Games Workshop designers. It was really important back in like the 80s and 90s particularly. Like this, like the GW tournaments and stuff were originally done by him, you know. He set up the first tournaments and all that. But he's also a great proponent of like narrative play. And with the early 2000s, he was talking about how the importance of narrative play was being like outdone by tournament style matched play, and how he was worried that the hobby would focus too much on that, which of course has come true to a large degree. And he was, you know, talking about how it's not the only way to play, but if we're not careful, it gets treated like that. And he talked about how the best games he ever had were like with two other games designers. I think it was the Perry twins and somebody else, I can't remember who. And how they would actually play a scenario where they all had like their own things to do, like objectives to do or whatever. And at the end of the game would, you know, they'd play it for like a set amount of time, and at the end of it discuss who won, or who they thought like deserved to win in that scenario, kind of thing. And I'm not saying that would be suitable for all the time, because that's, you know, can you imagine trying to get, I don't know, Asmoth to agree that you'd beaten him? And obviously that'd have to be somebody you knew well and all like that, but I think there definitely is more scope for sort of narrative-based missions than we quite allow. But of course, like a lot of things, it's always a bit of a spectrum, isn't it? That you can go from the kind of the extreme of not getting any, not getting any like army list or anything, but choosing it based on criteria, almost like a historical game, and discussing who's won with your opponent afterwards, through to something a bit more open, like where you've invented a specific scenario and it's not about you playing things in your normal match play way, but rather doing it as something a little bit more, a little bit different to how you normally do it. So I think things like I'm going to read all your comments together, by the way, Loomis, because I know you're doing them as they're like a number of thoughts together. So I'm going to read them all in one go. I'm not ignoring you, just so you know. Because I've bought recently, because I got some money other month, from the government, from the Department of Health, which is as I called it, the please don't go on strike again money. And it's not enough really, but I'm going to take it, of course. I'm not going to turn it down. And so I bought me the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. Sorry, I just call that mic again. I'm doing that a lot today. Let's come over here. The Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. I've done it again, you gods. Where am I putting it? Where's wrong? There we go. Let's try that. That's a little bit better, isn't it? I'm also just catching it all the while, which is no good. Let's keep adjusting it. Which is the lorry from Necromunda that I really like. And I got the Prometheum fuel tanks. And I think you've got an easy scenario there about securing fuel reserves and stuff. And whether that involves the lorry moving or just the lorry and the tanks being a kind of scenery piece you got to fight over, you've got a built-in, like a natural scenario kind of comes from that. Even if it's just a simple matter of fighting over an objective, it gives it a character, it gives it a feeling and a character compared to anything else. There we go, that's a little bit better. Whether you do like specific tailored scenario rules around it, you've already got character. But if you do, you've also got the option of doing that, fighting over fuel supplies, or one side's trying to blow them up or something. Or even your more advanced stuff where you've got to hijack the lorry and drive them off. Right, let's see, where we go. So Loomis, we're talking about armor facings, and Loomis said, takes away some of the importance of mobility and maneuver, which should be an important part of the game, which I was agreeing with, because like you used to do things like getting a land speeder with a multi-melter and trying to whip it around the back of the table to take pot shots at the rear armour of tanks where they were more vulnerable. And I said, are there any games with like armour facings and stuff? Other tabletop games, do they have it too? Loomis said, I haven't played the non-armour facings version, i.e. 40k, but it makes me think of the popular house rule for flanking in D&D 5e, in which you get advantage on attack rolls if you have an ally on the opposite side of your opponent, which does cause problems because it makes advantage much more common than it's meant to be, which unbalances things that run on it. For example, a thief can only use their sneak attack ability when they have advantage, so they're much stronger. But it means that every turn, every unit is trying to maneuver so that they have flanking, or set up a flanking, or move from a flank. Whereas without that house rule, as long as you're in attack range, there's no reason to move, so you mostly just line up and hit each other. Yeah, that does make it much more fluid, doesn't it? It also makes it feel like you're playing a game of Go, I suppose. Where you're trying to get your pieces on each side of their piece. But of course, you are trying, that makes sense. In a combat scenario, you tend not to actually just be lining up and hitting each other. In a film, and the same place like games and books and all sorts, teleprograms, they always depict battles, as particularly in Middle Ages, but all battles, as like two armies lining up and just running at each other. But historically, that was very rare. There were a lot of marching and counter-marching and trying to outmaneuver each other. If I remember... Wait, what am I thinking of? In fact, if I remember rightly, one of the early... we've talked about the Spartans before and how they were overhyped. But part of the reason they got that reputation initially is that because of the relatively tough training they had, they were a bit better able to march quicker or march more fluidly than... their opponents, because they did spend a lot of time drilling, or they did spend at least some time drilling and a lot of time running about. So that meant they were able to do wars of maneuver a little bit, or battles of maneuver a little bit more easily, and it allowed them to outmaneuver their opponents a little bit on the battlefield when their opponents were a bit more inflexible. So of course, that gave them an advantage. And they were eventually defeated by people doing that better. People outmaneuvering them, because hoplite phalanxes are very vulnerable to being flanked or in the rear. Because everybody's pointing the spears forward, it makes you a bit more inflexible and a bit more vulnerable to attacks from the sides. So, of course, if you can outmaneuver better, there you go. Lewis says, I'd be super into playing narratives and different scenarios, or even mini campaigns of just a couple of connected matches. But back when I used to play Azimuth a lot, he was very keen on never playing anything other than the default battle. Wouldn't even go for the other official battle modes in the rulebook. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, at times I've definitely been a bit more of that mindset. That it's the one that feels most fair, right? Lining up your two armies on the battlefield and battling each other like that. Look how humid. Because the humidity in my hair's gone really... So, I've, like when we were at sixth form and stuff, I used to be like, it's just line up and fight each other. But of course, there are all, like as Luma says, there are all the official battle modes in the rulebook. There were 6 different scenarios, if you like, in the 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battles rulebook. And when you were in a tournament, they used to roll a dice, a giant die. They had a huge foam die that they would roll before each game to tell you which one of the 6 you were doing. Some of them I didn't really like necessarily. There was some in there and I'm like, I don't really like that one. But it did give an extra element to it. I mean, Watchtower I really enjoyed. And probably one of my favourite ever Warhammer Fantasy Battles matches was a Watchtower one. That one was really fun. They tweaked the rules to make it fairer for a tournament, which is fair enough. And you make adaptations, but there's a lot of really fun stuff you can do with that. But as you say, whenever I've played Azimuth, it's always Battleline, as they were called in 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battles. None of those were tournaments, so they were of no value to his training, I guess. Yeah, it's... I think part of the reason that Azimuth don't like doing the other modes is because they can cause upsets, right? Like, you don't want any random elements. He wants to be able to control it to try and make sure he can win it. It can be very fun to play, but it can also be very not fun to play. Depends which Azimuth you get. To be honest, if he's winning, he's much more fun to play than if he's losing. I'll tell you that for now. And not every game I've played against him has been a lot of fun. Let's be honest. No items, Fox only, Final Destination. That's a reference. What's it to, Lewis? Is that a video game reference that I don't know? Or is it something that I should know and I'm missing? Smash Bros. Oh, okay. I don't know it too well, but is that like a thing? Unfortunately, in the free rules for 40k, you don't really get many scenarios in the rulebook, so you'd have to devise them yourself for the new rules. Or pay for the rules, I guess. I'm not going to do. Final Destination was an empty stage, just a single floating platform, so there were no terrain elements. Oh, yeah, I know exactly. I can imagine it already. No items, which items drop and who gets them are random elements. Oh, yeah. That's very Azimuth, isn't it? We've talked about it before, but one of the things I always said about 8th edition, Fox only, playing different characters makes for matchups and character tiers. Oh, right, I get you, yeah. Turning it into chess, aren't you? Which, don't worry, I'm not going to try and get you to play. I actually liked a tweet the other day. There's a fella who's kind of notorious online because his name's Gary Chalk, and he was actually one of the designers, like visual arts designer people, in Warhammer for a long time. And in fact, I believe, although I can't remember for certain, that he did some of like the original Space Marine chapters and stuff like that. Good, because chess is okay for your sword. And Gary Chalk is notorious for being irritable. To be honest, he's a miserable old man. And that's why I like him, because he reminds me of my dad. Like, he's left-wing, and he's miserable, and he's always, like, falling out with people and getting in rows online. And my dad don't get in rows online, apart from that time he got banned from a prog group for talking about jazz. for being critical about jazz, I should say. Like, he doesn't generally get into rows with people online like Gary Chalk does, but just generally being miserable. And anyway, Gary Chalk, who's kind of notorious for these things anyway, was saying that he's one of the things he rouses people a lot about is scenery and in games. And how people really want to just kind of like line their armies up and charge each other because they don't like the random element of terrain. Whereas he thinks it adds so much to a game to have it. And he included a photo of this really like detailed scratch-built board he'd done. You got, I got to agree with the man. Much as a miserable cuss as he might be, I've got to agree with him. It does make a huge difference. I'm working on some scenery in my own time right now. But people don't like the random element, I guess. I don't think it's possible to have a game where there's no difference between players unless they're taking turns simultaneously. Even in chess, someone has to go first, so it's slightly asymmetric. Also, first of all, hi, B-Rat. Second of all, I agree. And thirdly, we had someone in here, didn't we, the other week, and we mentioned that someone goes first in chess, so it's not the same. And they got right shirty with me. they got right shirty. The supposed difference, or whatever they said. I was like, oh, alright, I'll trust you. No one has ever been able to recreate this supposed advantage or something like that. And they got like right done about it. Alright, okay. You got chess in your name, I'll take your word for it. It was very funny. I'm terrible in that. I find someone getting right wound up about nothing really funny. Like, it just makes me really makes me laugh. Or getting like really wound up over something, like something minor. Like, the whole thing might be serious, but if you like, I don't know, say something trivial and then somebody gets really angry about it. And I don't mean like deliberately provoking somebody and like, ho. I don't mean that kind of thing where people are obnoxious just to get a reaction. I don't mean that at all. But what I mean is if you say, I don't know, I just don't want to be me. Like, if you say something like, I don't know, this person was critical of this tiny detail in a franchise, or even like something serious like a political view, right? And you say this person thought this specific aspect is, I don't know, placing the wrong emphasis or something. And they get really mad about it. That's really funny to me. It's like when I criticise my friend's obsession over Nolan movies. Oh, do they really like Christopher Nolan films? Yeah. I like Dunkirk. I thought Dunkirk's really well made. But otherwise, yeah, and I certainly think he's overrated as a filmmaker. Yeah, I think that adapting to the randomness is a valid skill and one of the most fun parts of games. Of course, you do run the risk of one player rolling nothing but sixes, which isn't fun, but that's the trade-off. Yeah, absolutely, because you could have a tabletop war game where you take all the randomness out of it, right? Like chess. And again, no doubt we can point out examples where there is some randomness there or something. But like, I've lost my train of thought. Because I just realised I made a mistake. It's only a minor one, but that's good to deal with. But yeah, part of the test of skill is being able to adapt to things that you don't expect. And of course, the challenge for a games designer is making those things balanced. So that, it's not like one kind of army or one army is going to get completely fracked over by a certain random element. You know, like if you had, I don't know, there's a random chance that all ranged weapons will stop working, and you got an army that's only got melee weapons, you're going to be unaffected. Your opponent who's using a ranged army is going to be screwed over. So there is a game design element there of making sure you don't mess it up for everybody or ruin the fun. Aha, I remember that. I was trying to say how the win rate among chess pros is towards white, and that bias gets higher and higher the more skilled the players. And they basically just said no. White wins around 60% at the highest level, if I remember right, which is a pretty big gap. If a character in a MOBA was winning that heavily, it would be patched pretty soon. Yeah, that was exactly it, Loomis. And they were like, this supposed advantage has never been replicated by any figures or whatever it was. And you're like, it's a visible thing, like we know the figures. And they were like, nope. No, we don't. The bat called you a liar, didn't they? But yeah, thinking about if it was a MOBA, at the minute, there's been a 40k, what they call balance slate, which is something they do every so often. Is that three or four times a year that they've started doing for 40k, where they basically do like rules updates. And nowadays they're doing like changing the points prices, but they're also like tweaking rules and stuff. And of course the official thing is you don't have to use the updated rules, but they're the ones that would be used for tournaments or whatever. And the Imperial Knights, I think it was, were getting like a 55% win rate or something like that, and they've been nerfed, right? All the costs have been put up and some of their rules have been changed. And there was someone else doing really well at the minute, I can't remember who it is, Eldari probably, and so their rules have been changed as well, because it's like a 55% win rate, and like you say, it doesn't take much to cause a change in the rules. But that person pretending that thing doesn't exist. Today I learned that Age of Empires 2 might be more balanced than chess. I think technically like 40k is as well. But it depends on the matchup. And just to go back to something B-Rat said, I mean, I like a fair few of them, Christopher Nolan's films. Especially the robots in Interstellar, I think are the best depiction of robots in modern fiction. But the storytelling is like, meh, most of the time. And the movies are too long. Yeah, I agree with that, B-Rat. I think, I really liked The Dark Knight. But that was years ago when I watched it. I don't know what I'd think now. A fella I work with, like, you've got to watch Dark Knight. It's amazing. Maybe they're a bit Joker-fied or Joker-pilled or whatever you call it. And as I say, I really like Dunkirk. I think that's a really good depiction of, largely outside of the UK, an area of the Second World War that people don't really know about, but that were really, really important and would have huge ramifications if it had not worked. I've not seen Interstellar, though, I should add. Let's see. Hi, Layla. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope Sunday's treating you well. Thanks for dropping by. Yeah, I really like the robots in Interstellar. There's a lot of clever bait and switch in their portrayal. I've not actually seen Interstellar, so it's one of those films that people talk about a lot, and I should probably watch it, and I just never have. There's a lot of memes and stuff that I see about it. The politics of Batman moving, especially the Dark Knight trilogy, is very bad. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, the politics of it are awful. I enjoyed it I remember finding flaws with it, but enjoying it just as a film to watch. Which I know some people can't do, of course. Some people find if the political message clashes too much, they can't enjoy it at all. Or it varies for me. It varies between what the kind of film is. It depends what the message is and how it works. And yeah, I'm sure you can understand. Yeah, Loomis is basically saying the same thing as my thoughts. I remember really liking the Dark Knight trilogy at the time, but my opinion on Batman in general has shifted greatly. Yeah, I've found that. I could enjoy it at the time, even though obviously I was aware of some of the stuff, and I'm I don't really like that, but I can still kind of enjoy it. But then I think if I rewatched him now, I'd kind of be no, actually, I don't know as I could enjoy it now in the way that I did, if that makes sense. At the time I could, and I don't know if I could do it now. But I say, it's been a long time. you can watch it just to rip it apart, assuming you view it somehow without paying for it, such as to friend's house. Yeah, absolutely. That, yeah, definitely. But Layla also said, my day could be even better once I figure out what colour to paint my night. I kind of went in, when it came to me night, I kind of went in knowing what colour I wanted to do it. But even as I worked on it, it became very much like an evolving thing. Like I started out like, I'm definitely going to paint it quartered, red and blue. And then as I would go in, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to tweak that, or I'm going to use a different red, or whatever. And so the one thing I knew from the beginning of my night is I was definitely going to avoid yellow and white. I was going to use them for the heraldry colours, because the heraldic symbols I was going to paint on it. Because my night was going to follow the rules of medieval heraldry. But I'd not really decided on some of the details and stuff. I went through a few different iterations in my mind of how I was going to do it, and I was going to do this bit a certain way and that bit another. So it does take a lot of thinking, especially at night being such like a centerpiece thing. Unless it's for Adeptus Titanicus, in which case it's not a centerpiece, because it's little to go alongside the Titans. Well, I welcome anyone coming to Slovenia to enjoy our lax copyright laws. Yeah. I wish we had your copyright laws, be right, honestly. White and yellow / gold heraldic metal colours, if I remember what you taught us from a different stream. You remember it very well, be right. That's exactly it. Well remembered. I did consider asking chat to see if anyone remembered, but you proved that you did. Yeah, there you go. The 2 heraldic metals, that's exactly it. Would red and blue look good on a chaos night? I think they would, yeah. So it depends, I suppose, if you want to do them as dedicated to a specific chaos god, or if you want to just do them as a general fallen knight. So you're doing them as a general knight. You can do it as your own heraldry. You can make it look corrupted if you want, because red and blue go really well together as a heraldic design. If you want, because it depends how you're going to do it, but you can do them as quarterly, like I did. You can do it as a half. You can do it with different panels. And it works really well, I think. And I think you've got scope, because you've got a good base with red and blue. You've got scope to then make it look corrupted, or make it look mucky, or whatever it is you want to particularly do with yours. I had to do that bit. Well, that's getting there at least. We've just got some tweaking to do, but we're mostly done the base colours now, which is nice. I'm just taking a moment. At the minute, I'm painting the 2 tractors from the Galvanic Servo Holders kit. And the 2 little tractors, they've got a little bit of a vibe of something like the old tractor designs from the 50s or whatever. And I really like them, but I've got to a point where all I've got to do are some fine details. And so I keep gearing them out, doing a little bit and then just stopping, because it's so fiddly and so precise that it's where you're holding them like this, kind of doing the tiniest detail. So I keep doing a little bit, putting them down, having 10 minutes, doing a tiny little bit more. It's taking me forever just to do this tiny amount of detail. I hate having to decide on the colour, because I don't want to start hating how it looks halfway through. Yeah, I can completely understand that, Layla. Because the worst thing, one of the worst things for me is when you paint something and it's done, and you look at it and go, I'm not happy with the design. I'm not happy with it. Like, that's like such a disappointing feeling. Or you finally finish your model and you look at it and go, I could have done that better. And like, yeah, a lot of the time, of course, you can just do them better. You can redo them, right? You can do that. But I know what you mean. It's frustrating, and you don't want to kind of, yeah, like you say, have to like do a big change halfway through. I've done that before though. Like, I don't know if I've painted any models on here where halfway through I've gone, actually, I don't like that. I did actually, didn't I? I spent ages painting. I painted a phoenix, right? And I did it this colour, and I put some of the feathers in as a brighter red. And I spent ages doing it, like just like highlighting all the raised detail on the feathers. Looked at it, and I mean, it took me streams plural. Looked at it and went, no, I don't like that. It looks rubbish. Like, redid it all. You are your worst critic, though. That's true. That's true, like, in general, and it is definitely true of me. So thank you for pointing that out. Thanks for the reminder. Here's the other question I ask chat every so often as a test to see if anyone remembers. What are the two colours from GW that I say, from Citadel Colour, you know, these, that I say never to use except for details? What are the two colours I always say you shouldn't use from GW? As I say, from Citadel Colour, I should say, technically. Let's see if anyone remembers. I bet you do, because I talk about it enough. That doesn't come to mind immediately. There's probably one that Loomis will remember more, because it's kind of, I don't think I've necessarily said it quite so recently. White and yellow, there we go. So be right, you're close with silver and gold. You're close with silver and gold there. It's white and yellow. Because they just don't cover very well. The ones that Citadel Colour make, they just don't cover very well. So you're very close, be right. It's white and yellow, like Loomis said. Later says, I'm probably setting my standards too high because it's my first really big model. The biggest I've ever done is a Razorback tank. Yeah, well, the thing I'd say with the Knight is, to be honest, it's one of those models for me that's changed the way I approach my painting a little bit. In that, I went in kind of thinking, well, I'll just get it done, you know, because I'm used to like cutting corners. I used to do a lot of tournament play, so like I used to getting stuff ready for tournaments and having to do it on a tight schedule. And also just, you know, it's like you're coming from work, you don't necessarily have a lot of time, but you want to get things finished, don't you? But what I found is by taking my time with it and doing it like bit by bit, it actually made me want to do it better. And so at first when I went in like cutting corners as I might normally, I found I didn't want to do that, and so I just kept, you know, doing a bit better. So I think don't necessarily expect too much of yourself, but at the same time, like, you know, take your time with it and just kind of like work over it and do it as you want to. It's a big thing. It's going to take a while, unless you're like a fast painter, because I'm like not a fast painter at all, as you can tell because you watch me stream and you know. I take it forever to do out on here. But yeah, just do it to the best of your ability and don't worry too much about how it's going. In that case, it's a learning opportunity, so don't sweat it. Even if it doesn't turn out great, you'll have learned a lot. Absolutely. I've found, you know, even for me who's been doing this for years and years, I found painting the Knight to be a real learning opportunity, absolutely. Because I'd not painted out at that scale before. So it definitely served for me as a chance to learn things too. I have approximate knowledge of many things, as the demon said in Adventure Time. Yeah, I never saw Adventure Time. Is that the one with what's it, the dog, and Finn the human? Is that Adventure Time, or is that something else? I sort of have a memory of people talking about Adventure Time, but I've never seen it. In fact, I think, yeah, that's the one. There you go. Thank you, Vera. Many moons ago, before I realised there was only one streamer, I used to watch this streamer, and she got a ukulele, and she would one of her streams a week, I think it was like Tuesday afternoon, was playing songs on the ukulele and singing along, and she used to sing like something from Adventure Time. That's what. She put a picture up on screen or something while she did it. There's a spin-off series starting now. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, if it was the Island song that would make me cry to hear someone sing it, it's so good. I think it might have been. Because she used to do other singing streams as well, but just like one a week where she did with the ukulele. Very good singer. I loved it. I have 2 shirts and 1 or 2 mugs with Adventure Time characters on them. Oh, very nice. BRS says, sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something. Another quote from Adventure Time. But that's true. Absolutely. You know, I found the other day when I went with my mum and dad's. My dad was like, oh, I found these models. Do you want them? I was like, well, I don't want them yet, but I will at some point have them off you. And one of them was the first model I ever painted. Back from summer 1995. And of course it's absolutely atrocious. You can't see detail for paint. But now I like to think in the intervening years I've got a lot better. And of course what you can find as well is it comes and goes. You know, you might paint 2 models and you find like you've got vastly better at them, right? Between painting the 2. You know, you paint model A, oh, it's no good. You paint model B and you've done a brilliant job, and it's like you've had a big increase in your ability and your talent. And then, you know, you do model C and it's different, or you know, you do, I don't know, C, D and E and they're all the same. But then you do F and it's way better again. So you do have these kind of ebbs and flows of how it changes and what you do. So it's about just keeping at it and making your improvements and incorporating them into future things. If you're already good at something, what's the point of doing it? I mean, that's a good point, Lewis, yeah. I think challenging yourself and trying to do different things is always worthwhile. Very true. I just like that dry moment, and then you might get into a fey mood and produce a legendary artifact. Exactly. And that's always worth doing. You know, if you ever have that moment where it's kind of like that, like you're doing something and you just suddenly, like, it's all coming together and you're working on it and like you don't want to stop. And you're just ploughing away, and that is so much fun. Yeah. I can't remember where I was painting once, and it would just all just like coming together, and I was looking at the clock and it was going later and later, and I can't. I was like right in the zone. It was amazing. They've gotten few and far between as I get older, unfortunately. Yeah, I think partly as you get older, you have less chance to like really explore things, don't you? You just don't have the same opportunities to spend time trying out things and getting into that moment where you can relax and get into it and to be hit by a fey mood. So that's where I found that when I was at uni and when I was unemployed, I'd got time to like try things and do things. By the same token, of course, my time was, I suppose, in some ways less pressing, so I didn't necessarily do all the stuff I would have, or I kind of wish I'd done when I had the chance. But, you know, you get older, you're working, you've got responsibilities, you know, I've got clean. I mean, I need to do that this week, actually. I need to get out a rate good clean. So, you know, you do your stuff to, like, your maintenance cleans, don't you? Keeping everything ticking over, but stuff gets missed in there more. You let stuff slip. So while I'm off, I want to, like, rake around at settee and stuff like that. Because, you know, it gets manky under your settee. I've got a great big settee, so it's awkward to shift. So you don't do it so often, do you? But anyway, you've got stuff like that you've got to do, and you've got to cook your meals, and you've got to go to work, and when you're coming from work you're tired, so you just don't have a chance to be that what I think humans are meant to be. I think we're meant to be beings who explore things and try things and do new stuff and spend time just trying it out. I think that's what we're supposed to be. And we don't do it so much because all the necessary pressures of life get in the way. Oh, we're back to why communism is the answer. We're back to communism. I remember seeing a tweet years ago, which I don't really agree with. Communism is always the answer. Exactly. I remember seeing a tweet years ago that said half of like left-wingers on Twitter just want like to have a bit more time to take up the violin or learn to paint, and the other half want to be the secret police. And like, I know it's being ridiculous, but the first half is definitely true. Also, I've definitely known people like the second half. Like that's not really like half of everybody, but I've definitely known people who just wanted to be the one to, you know, have power over others. I've definitely seen that. But then they're not really left wingers, are they? So we were talking about the other week, somewhere, Kira Chess Discord maybe, about the people who use being like left wing as an excuse to be puritanical and how just bizarre that is. We actually had a friend like that. Me and Loomis used to be friends with a fella who were like that. It was like, you know, under communism we won't have relationships anymore. It's like, no, get out. Using all my willpower to not rant about random anti-anarchist skeets I saw recently on Blue Sky. I think I've seen them as well. Was it the one about... Wait. I've seen some... I'll not get into it, but... No! I shall hold my tongue. You know, yesterday we were watching Aliens, Kira Chess Discord, and I mentioned something in passing that I'd seen on Blue Sky, on my skyline, if you like to call it, and nobody reacted. And to be honest, I thought it's the sort of thing that people might react to. But nobody reacted. And what I mentioned is it got to the scene with the alien queen. If you've seen Aliens, you know what I'm referring to. And it got to the scene with the alien queen, and I was like, you know, this scene's been a little bit spoiled for me, because, you know, we're on the Blue Sky, like, for you or whatever it calls it. You know, that one that's like not your feed, but it's the one that you can just look and it shows you other posts. And it doesn't seem to really have an algorithm as such, so you're getting like random stuff. And someone had done like some not safe for work art of the alien queen from Aliens, and I was like, so this is kind of like, it's kind of spoiled the scene for me. And nobody reacted to that. And I thought that's the sort of thing that people react to generally. Because it did. It kind of ruined the scene for me. And I was like, all I could think of. It was like being haunted by it. Well, I don't know about you. I don't know if anyone else is here on Blue Sky. But when I was on the... when I go on that, like, Discover thing... It's like a significant amount is furry porn, right? That's a significant amount of it. Or naked dudes. And I'm like, where's the, why are you showing me this? It's remarkable. Like, why is that coming up so often and catching me off guard? I can't scroll this in public. I can't scroll this at work, can I? I'm not saying I entirely mind all of it. I'm not saying which bits, but I was like, where is this coming from? I'm definitely not Googling things related to the alien queen. Yeah, don't do that, B-Right. It's not worth it. You ruin that scene in Aliens for you. And then when the rest of the stream passes in silence about me talking about, was it that thing? I thought, no. This too is Yuri. I've got to do this bit quite delicately because it's going to be a little bit awkward. I'm painting the grill inside what I assume is like it's part of the air vent system on the engine deck of the Baal Predator. Not quite happy with it, but you know what, if I do it like this actually, this will work. It's a little bit awkward, but I reckon I can if I do it like this, which is definitely worse, I might be able to in the end do something that makes it better. I do really enjoy Aliens, by the way. I think it's a really fun film. Like, it's very different to Alien, but I think it still works really well and I really enjoy it. To be fair to H.R. Giger, though, his art was always both scary and oddly horny. Yeah, absolutely. And like that's what he was deliberately going for. When like he always tried to make his design give you an impression of like sensuousness, even though they're also like horrifying and unsettling. I think he did that really well. Like even down to like the mic stand he made for Jonathan Davis, the vocalist from Korn. I have an art book or two somewhere, and the amount of random horny elements is excessive. I believe it. I know he got in trouble. Well, when he designed the egg from Alien, you know the eggs that you see, he wanted or he designed the original kind of opening of the egg to look like a vagina. And they got told that they got to redesign it because like religious viewers might dislike it. And he responded by making it open in a cross shape, because at least that's something they like looking at. Which I like the pettiness of that. Me flipping through the book. What a sicko. Keeps flipping through the book. Exactly. It's the I know that the original thing is really creepy, but I'm sure it's like a weird thing. I've just seen like a clip of it out of context with someone going, "That's terrible. That's terrible. What websites would that even be on? I mean, where would you find that? Just so I can avoid it. But like, what would that even be like?" I always find that funny. Like someone feigning outrage while at the same time being like, "Tell me more." I always find that funny. Oh yeah, that's from Always Sunny. I think I honestly don't know what it's from. Because I don't really know Always Sunny. Is it Always Sunny that's like a spoof of like awful characters in sitcoms and stuff where they actually are straight up awful? Or is that a different one? And that kind of the point is that they're awful. Something like that. I've never watched it, but I've seen many clips and memes. Yeah, I think the idea is like sitcom characters are often kind of awful, and nobody treats them like they're awful because it's part of the joke. Whereas I think in that one they are awful and like overtly so, which I quite like. So we're going to apply a brown. Actually, to tell you what I'm doing, because I've been doing the same thing for so long, I've not had to say oh. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply a brown wash to the bronze areas. And what of course that's doing is it's providing shade. Because it's a wash, obviously soaks into the recesses, so it's shading the area, but it also serves to just kind of take the edge off the brightness. If you were trying to do something that looked really bright, you might not want to do that, or to do it in a slightly different way. But for me, I do want the edge of the brightness being taken off a little bit. I actually really like the bronze colour as is, and that will be diminished by this wash. It will change the nature of that, but that's just it's just something I've got to deal with there. That's just the trade-off I've got really for getting it to look how I wanted to. I don't mind really. It's gonna be hard, but we'll have to live with it. Yeah, that's it. You just got to. I finally made my peace with that. Just what it is. What it is. It is what it is. I hate that phrase. Well, it is what it is. It's so like defeatist, isn't it? So just like resigning yourself. Well, it is what it is. Now, of course, what you can do if you really wanted to, and some people do. It's a little bit too much actually. And I'll probably do a little bit of this. Is like go back over it with your base coat as a kind of highlight. So you're not putting it into the recesses, but you're putting it back over the raised bits so that it gives you back some of that original colour while still keeping the recesses and without being too shiny. The bosses at the hospital used to say that so much. It is what it is. We are where we are. Brexit means Brexit. Oh, I hated that. Like, what is... the old thing that no one can tell you what Brexit means, but Brexit means Brexit. That's been such a disaster, by the way. For all my problems with the EU, and I do have many, as we've talked about before at length, we'd be so much better off in it, aren't we? And of course it were all done just to make some rich people even richer. So we can say it's been done badly because it's actually never meant to help anybody, except the few. Could have done with just neatening up that a little bit before I did this stage, but it's okay. We can worry about that later. Something like the ammo boxes on the side of the sponson there. This is like a really good technique for them. Because by putting on a fairly heavy wash, it soaks in really well and gives you a nice contrast. And saves you having to like paint on the individual bullets. Now I don't know how I'm going to be able to show you, but if you look at the Sanguinius icon on the front of the tank, that's your before. Let's see if I can get it up close. And we'll see what you think of the after. Something I've been thinking about a bit, recently is interpretation in media. Like when we consume some media, of how we interpret it. And of course, I'm very much of the opinion that there's a lot of stuff we can and should interpret. That there's not, or very rarely is, a specific right answer. And even if the creator of it intended a specific right answer, that doesn't mean it's the only one or the only valid one. There's often things we can draw from it, whether the author intended it or not. But by the same token, I think sometimes what we do is we interpret not the significance or the meaning or whatever, but the actual events that are depicted. And so sometimes people come up with completely alternative versions of what actually was said in the book or something. Hi Frezzo, hope you're having a good day today. Thank you for dropping by. No, I still haven't got over the Bilbo as a landlord thing. Why do you ask? Right, I'm missing bits. So yeah, can you see the Sanguinius now? You see that the shadows look so much sharper. And that's because of you can't see the colour difference very well, but that's because we're applying this wash. It makes it really kind of deepens the shadows. Adds a nice bit of depth to those recesses. I wasn't even thinking about that, but that episode was very confusingly shot, okay? Let's take a moment to let that dry a little bit, because we're going to be doing a lot of washes now, so we're going to have to leave a little bit of time between each stage, just so I don't like rub it off with my hands. Loomis was referencing a discussion we've had on and off a little bit in our Discord about exactly the chain of events in an episode of Battlestar Galactica, where Loomis had interpreted it a little bit differently to what was going on. What I was referencing is apparently a lot of people online think that Bilbo Baggins from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings was a landlord. We've discussed this in the Kira Chats Discord at length. Yeah, apparently a lot of people online think he was a landlord because he doesn't work, therefore he must be a landlord. And I think that's a really good example because you can debate about all kinds of, all kinds of things about the significance. What's the nature of the relationship between Frodo and Sam? Between Legolas and Gimli? What's the significance of Gimli asking Galadriel for strands of her hair? All of that stuff is quite free, right? Tolkien didn't say or whatever. But sometimes people end up discussing or like trying to put their own I guess I wouldn't know what to say interpretation almost, but on the kind of stated events and say, well, this must be what really happened, which is fine, really. But when people put it out as fact, particularly online, of course, or they tell others that this is definitely what happened, when they're actually kind of inventing something that's not like the stated events, as it were, I think it becomes can become a bit of a problem. But no, I wasn't thinking of you, Loomis. With the although I guess theoretically that could be a thing. If you want to use that example, if you're talking about did a Viper or a Raptor go on a recon mission, on a recce mission, I guess if you were to tell everybody that absolutely it was this or that and it wasn't, maybe that falls under it. The other thing you have to remember with washes, or any painting really, is that it will often dry a slightly different colour to what you put on. So you have to remember that it can be tempting when you applying a wash to go, well, it's not very pronounced effect yet, let's keep daubing it on. And if you're not careful, you can end up, as it dries, it can become more pronounced. So you just have to, you can do washes in different stages. You don't have to chuck it all on at once, which is a weakness of mine. I tend to think, well, it don't look good enough yet, let's chuck some more on. And you don't need to. Let it dry first. Decide if you like how it looks and then do it. If it needs more, you can put more on. Jar Jar Binks is 100% absolutely the secret Sith Lord mastermind behind everything happening in the Star Wars movies. It's definitely canon. Exactly. To be honest, Frezzo, that's actually a really good example because that's a possible interpretation, right? It's never, it's a bit out there. There's nothing on screen to confirm or deny it. I think you can absolutely do that. Again, asserting it definitively perhaps is confusing, but I think you've got room for interpretation there. Whereas if you said, I don't know, Jar Jar Binks killed Count Dooku, that would be different, right? That would be asserting something that isn't on screen. Or saying that you can interpret that he did or something. That's when you fall into error, if you like. I think people can fall into error. Also, I wonder if it's true that George Lucas, at the premiere of Phantom Menace, said that Jar Jar was the key to it all. Because I've heard that repeated, but Like, I've got no proof. I've got no facts. No evidence to support it, but I kind of want to know if that's true. Why did they have a bunch of Viper pilots in the briefing room if there were no Vipers on the mission? It's like they were aiming to confuse me. Yeah. I guess so. Maybe they just do all the briefings together like that, you know? Because it was like a big thing, right? So maybe they wanted all the pilots briefed up on what they were doing. I might be misremembering, but wasn't Jar Jar one of the senators that voted to give Palpatine emergency powers? He was in fact the senator who proposed that Palpatine be given emergency powers. He proposed the vote. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, come on, yeah, let's go. I don't think there's anything especially outrageous about that interpretation. Could you imagine the reveal though at the end of like Revenge of the Sith, that like Jar Jar were behind it all? That'd be like that'd be I'll explain in a moment. Let me master myself. That would have been a Game of Thrones Series 8 moment, is what I was going to say. So Frezzo says, okay, but speaking of things directors said, did you know that Peter Jackson was telling Christopher Lee how to sound when he got backstabbed at the top of his tower, and Lee then told Jackson that he'd been in the World War and that was not how people sounded, and Jackson let Lee do it? Let Lee do it. The reason me and Beer are laughing about that, the significance, is when we were watching Return of the King in Kira Chat's Discord, I pointed that out, right? I was like, did you know, here's a fun fact. And people were like, wow, okay, yeah, that's really interesting. And Kira's like, huh, what an interesting thing, that's pretty funny. And then later, like, somebody else pointed it out again. And she's like, come on, you're not the first person to point this out. Nair's already done it. And then later somebody else did it again, and then somebody else again later. So it's become this thing where just everybody's just pointing that out now. And like the Kira Chats community, just everybody's going to just point that out forever. It's like our own community version of the did you know Aragorn broke his toe thing? Oops, sorry. Did you know Viggo Mortensen broke his toe? Like, it's the Kira Chats community version of that. Also, Shadow Hearts are products of our environment, okay? Having been convinced that Padme would have done it, and having no ability to develop opinions representing the native culture of Naboo separate to the interests of the European, Coruscantian colonists. Yes, exactly. There's so many problems with the Gungans, isn't there? Did you know that when, cause you know Brian Blessed voiced Boss Nass in Phantom Menace? When he received the script, he actually sent it back because he thought there'd been an error when they were printing it off. He's like, this makes no sense. It's just full of nonsense. It's kind of fun to write it out a new one every time, to be honest, since it's not been the exact same retelling twice. I can kind of see that actually. It's the whole thing of if you get like 3 or 4 people together who experience the same thing, they'll all retell it slightly differently, which is exactly what's happening here. Why know of Christopher Lee from a friend? Even when he was in poor health, he would still travel to events like film festivals, and was sometimes up early before his wife to tell people stories and take pictures with them. Oh, that's really nice. Good old Christopher Lee, I like that. Lee seems like a decent bloke nowadays. Yeah, oh, that's really nice. I know, like, as soon as he died, like, the press were like doing like hit pieces on him. Like, oh, well, maybe he wasn't really in the SOE and stuff like that. Like literally, like the day after he died, they're doing that. I like to tell people that Viggo Mortensen breaking his toe was mentioned in the appendices and expanded on in the Silmarillion. Oh, that's fantastic, Loomis. I love that. Oh, that's a brilliant troll. I love it. Yeah, here's a thought, and I know my mum thinks this way too, and forgive me for what I'm about to say, because it's a bit cruel, really. But I think Viggo Mortensen, he's just like the most ordinary looking bloke, right? In fact, he looks a bit sort of creepy. I can't put like words. If you see him in normal IRL life, he sort of looks a bit creepy. But then as Aragorn, he's like the most handsome man ever. And I don't understand the transformation, but it is, right? As Aragorn is like so handsome. I often refer to Aragorn and Legolas as my bio-awakening, by the way. But then, like in real life, just like a normal, slightly creepy-looking dude. I need to rewatch the extended editions and also watch the commentaries. I only ever watched like bits of the commentaries. Like I watched some of them, I'm really fascinated, but never like properly sat down and watched all of them. But I always watch the extended editions. I think they're a lot better. I think the extended editions are remarkable in that they don't actually have like extraneous scenes or scenes that like you don't kind of watch it and go, oh yeah, I can see why they cut that out. They're still interesting and add details and make the story easier to follow. When the extended version, the ones we watched in Discord, we watched the I'm sure Narelon will know. Yeah, we watched the extended Two Towers and Fellowship of the Ring. No, we watched the extended Return of the King, but we watched the theatrical cuts of the other two. We went for theatrical because it's shorter. But then a number of people said that the extended ones were easier to follow. And so Kira watched the extended Two Towers and Return of the King in her own time. Two Towers because she'd missed the end of Two Towers because her mum turned up. And Return of the King so she was like ready to watch it with us and weren't like as kind of like caught out and behind as everybody else, I guess. So we watched the extended Return of the King, which is very good, and I agree with that decision. So it was only the extended Return of the King that we watched. And like, I know the films have problems, right? I know the films have problems. I know the books have problems. We can talk about that at length. We've alluded to it enough before. But by do I love them. And by problems, I mean stuff like the lack of female characters and depictions of things like race and class. By do I love those books, though. And the films I do really enjoy. I think it's because as Aragorn, he had a bit of eye makeup, and also the scruffy beard and hair are great. When he's crowned up as the king, his eye makeup isn't dark anymore, and his hair isn't as visible, and he does not do it for me at that point anymore. Yeah, I agree with that, actually. Like, once he becomes LSO, King of Gondor, or High King of Gondor and Arnor reunited, yeah, he's just not... Yeah, I completely agree. At that point, he's just like, fine, I guess. Hello, dropping in before replying. Hi, Porcelain, how's it going? Thank you for dropping by. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope you enjoyed your camping trip, by the way. I never said it to you in person, I don't think. Good, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine today. Carl Urban, though, I will take any iteration of that man. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of Carl Urban as Eomer. Just like in general, I think he portrays it really well. I think he, but you know. Have you seen Dredd? Have you seen Dredd be right? So I think Carl Urban is so good as Dredd. As Judge Dredd in Dredd. Yeah, I like him in Dredd. Yeah, I think he's really good. I like how much emotion he manages to convey. Just the bottom half of his face. Like, you can only see the bottom half of his face, and he manages to convey all kinds of emotions. I think it's a real achievement, actually. Turn that round out again in there. I really like him in The Boys. He's got that naughty British swagger. I can't stand his character so much in The Boys. He's so awful. But yeah, I also get what you mean. Like, he's so horrible in The Boys, isn't he? I think it's kind of what we've talked about before on here a little bit. I've got to put that down for a while because I can't do that next bit. In that a bad character, like a nasty character or a character who's unpleasant or whatever, can be made likeable on screen because of the charisma of the actor playing them. I've been watching more of Life on Mars, which is a propaganda program. It's got a lot of issues, and we could spend some time talking about it. But the sort of, what would you call him? He's the kind of the foil for the main character, who's a bloke called Gene Hunt, who's from the copper in the 70s. And he's horrible. Like, he's absolutely awful. But he got really popular at the time because Philip Glenister plays him in a charismatic way. Even though he's just awful. Like, he's absolutely horrible. But, you know, he likes it. Same with, like, I know people have said about that. I can't remember the actor's name. Who played the Hound in Game of Thrones. The series Hound is much more likeable than the book. And the book is horrible. Whereas in the series, he's kind of likeable, even though he's also awful. That can be I like a bad boy. Fair enough, you're right. That's fair enough. Would you say he was a product of his environment? That's another little Kira Chat's community reference. I'm sorry about dropping those in all the time. So what we're doing now, which is the thing that might seem a little bit odd, is we're going to apply a blue wash to the red, and we're not going to. What we're mostly going to do is put that in the recesses, which there aren't a lot of on the turret. But we're mostly just going to do that in the recesses. But I'm going to give it a light dusting over everywhere else. Now, you don't really want to do washes over flat panels like this. It pulls and it doesn't look very good. But what it will do is when we then just chuck another layer over the top, which we will, another layer of red over the top, it's going to just alter very slightly the colour and just gives a nicer colour to it when we're done overall. But blue actually shades red really effectively. Without it does take the edge off the colour, you can see that, but it shades it really effectively. It's something to do with colour wheels that I don't really understand. But say you only want it to be very light over the actual flat panels because that's not really what it's here for. But round where there's going to be shade, I want it a little bit thicker. I've also just realised I completely missed a bit on the underside of the turret that I'm going to have to paint. Mildly inconvenient. But in fact, you can already kind of see how it's pooling on the flat panels of the armour. Making a copper/brass rust look. We've got a little bit on the brass area, kind of tones it down a little bit, but here we're just taking, kind of just shading the flat red panels. where there's like little joins, you can see around the gun mantlet, where it joins the main body of the hull, I guess, the turret. You want a little bit thicker there because that's going to form an area of natural shade. Whereas on the flat panels don't really matter so much. We don't want a lot there. And of course, what you sometimes find is that your washers run a little bit, and so you need to go back over an area and neaten it up or reapply some or whatever, and that's all fine too. One thing I will say about putting a blue wash on red is it does make it look mucky. So you can't really not do a layer over the top of this. Because it does make it look mucky, you can't leave it. Just as we go. Yeah, in the TV series, he's kind of a softy at heart towards the end. Yeah, that's the Hound in Game of Thrones. Red Planet looks like it'll be on time today. Streaming the starting screen. Cool. We will be over relatively shortly. I'm just going to be finishing up here, and then we'll raid in as we do. Going to go and get some snacks. Thank you for the stream. Well, thank you for hanging out, B-Rat, and having some fun conversations. As always, thank you for keeping me company. Hope you get your snacks and get ready for your mod work. It's also very easy to like overdo the blue wash, by the way. You can see that's changed the colour completely. Or maybe you can't. Well, it's very hard for me to do. Oh, I missed a piece. Never mind. If I just show you a bit of a side by side. See the whole of the tank so far. Let me show the turret next to it. You can't see it. You can see how this is much darker. In a way, it looks a bit mucky. But it's also about adding some of that shade to the recesses, which we're going to do. We'll probably have to... maybe I might be able to just get it quickly finished off before we raid over. We'll finish for today. Because this stage is actually pretty quick to do. So you don't want it too heavy on all the armor panels, but it don't really matter if it's a little bit too much. Because we... if you were doing it with a colour where you didn't need to do an extra layer afterwards... That's when you've more got to be aware that you don't do it too heavily on your flat panels. In fact, there's not really much point in doing a wash on a flat panel anyway. But because we know we're going to be doing another layer, you can afford to be a little bit lax with it, really. Just to make sure you get your shading in the recesses and where those plates join together. Because one of the things I like about Imperial vehicles is they are pretty solidly greebled. There's lots of little details, little edgings, little stuff like that. And these little random square cut-out panels on the tank, wherever purpose they're meant to serve in real life. If it were real, they use, that creates a little bit of texture, a little bit of detail, and that's going to need that effect painting, And of course, one thing to note as well is when you're doing your shades and washes over metals, I talked earlier about doing the brown over the kind of bronze colour. We did black over the silver, which we've done before. You know about that. It takes the edge off, tones it down a little bit. But if you can use different colours for a different effect. If you use blue or green over a silver coloured metal, it gives it a different look. If you use brown, it makes it look mucky. If you use and this is the one that I found very interesting. Found it out recently. If you do a flesh coloured wash over silver metal, it makes it look rusty. I didn't realise that. I didn't know that. I know about painting things that are fully rusted, and we can talk about that if we ever do one of those on the stream, or even if you just want to know. Like I did for the barrel on the base of the Imperial 9. But if you want it to look like the metal is in use but is just kind of rusty as it's going, not completely rusted over, but you know how metal gets, but like you have to see it on industrial vehicles or whatever, where the metal has developed that sort of patina of age. A flesh wash over silver metal is spot on for that. Let's say you only want a light wash over the flat panels, a heavy wash into the recesses. What I'm probably going to do is just everything except the underside and the tank, because we've got to roll it over to do the underside of the tracks and stuff, and that's something we've got to do separately to everything else because it's a chore. So we're going to do everything but the underside of the tank today. When it comes to washing, I hope. Actually, I should have thought this example earlier, by the way. You know when we were talking earlier about things you discover, or I mentioned discovering things that you then do differently. One of the things for me is using more sub-assemblies. You know I don't like sub-assemblies. Or doing things in sub. Not that I don't like them. I don't like doing things in sub-assemblies. I'm just not really a fan. Since doing the Imperial Knight and seeing how well that worked, and where there were areas where it wasn't a sub-assembly, where I didn't do them as sub-assemblies, it was harder to do and harder to get a good effect and things like that. I'm now more committed to doing more sub-assemblies in future. Like as I've been painting these tractors, there are definitely areas where I go, actually, I wish I'd left that bit off and dealt with it later. Because I now know how that works and how that can be better. To say a certain model can change how you do things and how you view doing things as well. This step at least is quite quick, which is quite nice. Some people are able to paint things very quickly, some take a lot longer. And you get people like me who take a while but then also get a bit fed up at times when a certain stage takes a long time. I do not, it seems, have the patience of a saint. I do in some areas, but not in this. People often say to me stuff like, I don't know how you have the patience to do all of that. And like for some areas, it's no problem at all, but for other types of painting or other things that I do get kind of like fed up. A nice bit of coverage around there. Bit more around there. That's a little bit dark in places, but we can just pull that up a little bit. Spread it out. Oh, it looks terrible. Like it just looks so mucky now. Look at that. Look how mucky it looks. And that's because we're doing it over like a bright red and we're doing a dark blue over it, so it does make it look very mucky. And you will, if you're washing a lot of a model, you will end up getting it on your hands. And something to look out for is if you're doing the wash directly in front of something else, because you can get little bits fly off because it's so liquid. But here we are, we're winding up for the end now. As you can see, that's all going to take time to dry anyway, so we would be a little bit snookered about what we could do next anyway. So we've got to let it dry, which is fine. So we might as well give it a week, can't we? So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope we've had a good time. I always have. I always enjoy hanging out with you all and getting some painting done and chatting about whatever. They're starting proper now. Thanks, Frezzo. We shall raid over. Thanks for stream. No problem, Frezzo. Thanks for hanging out as always. We're going to wrap up. We're going to raid over. Thank you, Parson. Thank you, Loomis. All right, let's do a raid then. So yeah, I'll be back on on Tuesday at 2000 BST or thereabouts with Loomis of Phelan, friend of the channel, for Minecraft, and I'll be a week today at around 1800 BST for more painting. We're going to be carrying on with this. Got a YouTube, we got a Discord. We're going to do a raid to Red Planet, which is a great commie show, helping us to make finding out how we can make a better world. Always worth a while. We're going to raid that. Hope you'll all join me for the raid over. Loomis, the raid message, if you will. I always have to do this because like my setup's that scuffed that I have to like adjust everything and balance it all around. Thank you, Loomis. Got a raid message. Let's get the raider rolling. I'm so used to doing this now. Alright, that's it. Brilliant. So in a moment I'll flick over onto the ending screen and then we'll be good to go. We'll go straight over there. Alright. Thank you everybody for joining me. Thanks for hanging out and chatting. That's been a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed that too. And I hope to see you all soon. Until then, take care and Namarie.